Well, as we've heard, there has been disagreement in the last few months about the issue of migration. We've heard about Giorgia Meloni sending a letter. Germany is financing of NGOs that are rescuing migrants at sea.
And I agree that border security also, and above all, depends on governing migration flows and combating mass irregular immigration.
Italy just slammed Germany with a shocking ultimatum, exposing that only 7.8% of Merz's Dublin transfer requests actually worked. Giorgia Meloni tore apart his so-called migration turnaround, showing it's failing for 2 out of 3 deportations. It's a brutal clash that could change Europe forever.
Because we both are convinced that our freedom and the prosperity and well-being of our people do depend on security.
The tension between Italy and Germany has been simmering for years, but now it has erupted into something far more volatile. Italy isn't complaining anymore. Rome has fired an ultimatum straight at Berlin, and it strikes directly at the core of Germany's migration turnaround. Giorgia Meloni isn't sugarcoating anything. She's calling it what it is, a national security emergency, and she's placing the blame squarely where she believes it belongs, on Germany.
On the other hand, Germany criticized Italy and accused it of not respecting EU laws when it comes to the distribution of asylum seekers in Europe.
For years, Germany strutted around Europe as if it held the moral high ground. Speeches, promises, stern talk about order. But once Italy began publishing the data, the entire narrative collapsed. Friedrich Merz, the man who came to power claiming he would finally restore German control, is now staring at statistics that shred his credibility. This is the kind of political humiliation that clings to a career like smoke after a fire. The numbers don't lie, and they're brutal enough to make even Berlin panic. Germany talks tough about deportations, but the math exposes the reality. In 2024, only 37% of attempted deportations actually happened. Nearly 2/3 failed. 2 out of every 3 people Germany tried to remove stayed right where they were. That's not order, it's paralysis. Then comes the Dublin regulation. Germany sent 74,581 transfer requests to other EU states. Actual transfers carried out is only 5,827. That's a tiny 7.8% success rate. Germany is basically drowning in paperwork and calling it border policy. And to Southern Europe, it looks like Berlin is trying to dump responsibility while pretending it's in control. That hypocrisy is fuel for Germany's own political fire. But Italy is done playing the role Brussels wrote for it.
I think it is very, very important that we avoid the risk that
Rome didn't accept the burden quietly. It pushed back with force. Italy takes in more Dublin transfer requests than any other EU country, 42,087 in 2024 alone. And how many did Italy accept? Essentially, none. That's because back in 2022, Meloni stunned the EU by suspending Dublin transfers entirely. Not postponed, suspended, and 2 years later, Italy still hasn't budged.
a global phenomenon which affects Europe in particular, both within and outside the EU borders. This is why our government have long been working together to defeat the criminal organizations that exploit and profit from people's despair and legitimate desire for better living conditions.
Meloni's message to Germany is as sharp as a blade. We are not your dumping ground. You created this crisis, now handle it yourself. And here's the twist. Italy actually has the numbers to back it up. While Germany drowns in failed policies, Italy has slashed irregular arrivals. From 157,000 arrivals in 2023 to 66,317 in 2024, a massive 60% reduction. Meloni can now look Berlin straight in the eye and say, our policies work, yours don't. If you're following this shocking showdown, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because you won't want to miss the next twist in Europe's migration crisis.
You know that I've been also proposing a meeting between US and European leaders for if we divide ourselves, that will make us all weaker. Yeah.
This is where the real fracture in Europe becomes impossible to ignore. Northern countries get cheap labor from migration, especially in manufacturing, logistics, and elder care. But when things go wrong, when asylum claims pile up, when housing and social systems strain, suddenly the burden is pushed south. Northern Europe gets the workforce. Southern Europe gets the fallout. Italy has had enough.
Actually, agreement both agreed that illegal migration to Europe has to be stemmed and that legal ways of migrating to Europe have to be made possible.
This isn't just a debate over statistics. It's a fight over what Europe has turned into. Because when Germany sends out 74,000 transfer requests and only delivers 7% of them, the idea of European solidarity becomes nothing more than a slogan. And when Italy receives 42,000 requests and refuses every single one, the message becomes unavoidable. The system is broken. We won't participate in a broken system. Meanwhile, Germany insists the Dublin system is essential, even though Germany itself can't make it work. Berlin is terrified that Italy's defiance will trigger a domino effect. If more countries follow Italy's example, Germany loses its entire migration strategy. Brussels loses control, and the EU could face not just a policy crisis but a structural crisis.
Our efforts, making policy forces, intelligence service, and judicial authorities speak louder, because our common goal is to target the problem at its very heart, namely the profits made by.
Because here's the hard truth, EU law means nothing without cooperation. If states stop obeying, the entire system collapses overnight, and Italy just proved how easy it is to walk away. Germany is now cornered. Merz is scrambling. Brussels is sweating. And Italy is holding the strongest hand it's had in years. Meloni isn't just defending Italy's borders, she's challenging the entire EU model. And for the first time in a decade, a leader from Southern Europe is actually winning the fight.
Il regolamento di Dublino deve cambiare.
Dublin rules must
L'Italia è
change.
fortemente contraria.
Italy is strongly against the proposals of Dublin rules reform that are debated now and prepares its own proposal.
Germany promised a migration turnaround. Italy just revealed it was an illusion, and nothing exposes that illusion more brutally than the numbers at the EU level. The Dublin system is not a system. It's a malfunction disguised as policy. In 2024, EU member states issued 151,830 transfer requests. Actual transfers completed are 16,455, barely 11%, a failure rate that would make any student drop out of school by choice. France managed 8.5%. Belgium hit 12%. These aren't immigration policies, they're punchlines. Northern Europe pretends to follow the rules. Southern Europe pretends to enforce them. Everyone plays along because no one wants to admit the entire structure is collapsing. And then came the political earthquake, the Meloni-Merz collision. Merz, trying to posture for German voters, went public and demanded Italy restart Dublin transfers. It was a bold demand and a reckless one. Asking Italy to clean up a mess Germany helped create is like crashing someone's car and handing them the repair bill.
To working together to address the root causes of migration and thus guarantee the right not to migrate. This means building a model of cooperation with the countries of origin and transit of migration flows so that they can prosper on the resources they own.
Meloni didn't rush to respond. She hit him with cold, calculated silence, the kind that tells you the answer is already no. When she finally spoke, it was a public slapdown. She accused Germany of attracting migrants with benefits and then dumping the consequences onto Southern Europe, and Berlin panicked, because they know she's not wrong. If Italy stands firm, France, Greece, and Spain could follow, and if they do, the entire EU migration structure collapses like a house of cards in a hurricane. Germany, meanwhile, doesn't want voters to realize that most Dublin transfers it accepts never actually happen. Deportations fail due to missing documents, uncooperative countries of origin, and EU legal loopholes. German courts block removals on humanitarian grounds even when the government wants them carried out. Merz talks about control while the system beneath him dissolves like sugar in water. This is why the AfD keeps rising. People aren't turning to them because they're inspired. They're turning because the mainstream keeps promising fixes that never materialize.
Yet, fighting irregular migration also means encouraging instead regular migration and reaffirming the principle that it's up to each nation and not to traffickers to decide who should enter and who should not enter its own territory.
And beneath all of this sits the larger, more dangerous battle. Who controls Europe? National governments or Brussels? Italy's refusal to obey EU mechanisms isn't a minor bureaucratic protest. It's a declaration of sovereignty. Southern states are tired of being Europe's unofficial border guards, while northern states preach morality from a safe distance. Germany calls Italy anti-European. Italy calls Germany neo-colonial. And other countries are quietly watching, not with disapproval, but with interest, and maybe even admiration. Because Italy didn't just say no. Italy proved that no works. Europe is now staring into a mirror, and the reflection is ugly. The illusion of EU unity is cracked, the Dublin system is collapsing, and Germany is discovering that without cooperation from the south, its migration strategy evaporates instantly. This isn't a diplomatic spat, it's a turning point, a historic rupture. Either Europe builds a migration system that actually works, or every nation will simply go its own way. By 2026, the EU won't just face reform, it will face reckoning. The rope is tightening, the thread is snapping, and the Italy-Germany showdown may be the opening chapter of the EU's next and darkest era.